Well, how do you survive when things look hopeless? I think Bonnie Borchardt has lived the answer. And I'm so thrilled you're here from Stouffville.
Thank you, Myra.
And I thought maybe you were a middle child.
Nope, I'm a baby.
You are the baby.
I'm a baby.
But there was a baby before you, and this is going to be a sweet part of the story. It didn't start sweet.
There were two babies before me. My mom had two little girls, she was in a very abusive relationship, and she had a little 2-year-old daughter, and escaped from that relationship and discovered that she was pregnant for another child. So she didn't know what she was going to do, and in those days there wasn't social assistance. So she, wonderful foster family, was able to take the older child, but no one for the baby. So she placed that baby for adoption. And later, we've always wanted to tell this story on Huntley Street. Later we were reunited. And we've been, she also had just come to know the Lord, just about the same time I had, and we were sisters right away. As soon as we spoke on the phone after we found each other, we were sisters in the Lord and sisters again.
What a sweet story.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
The beautiful thing that happened out of what must have been very painful for your mother in giving up that baby is that she came to a place of praying a Hannah prayer, a desperate prayer for God for another baby girl. That's why you're here.
I'm here because of that prayer. Yeah.
And what did she say? What was her commitment to the Lord?
She said if the Lord would give her another baby girl, that she would bring me up to serve the Lord, and I am. I'm serving Him.
And you were an exceptional little girl in terms of your spiritual hunger and pursuit of God. I understand you even skipped school to go to the World Day of Prayer. No teachers watching now. No.
Yeah, I loved the Lord right from Mom taught me how to pray. She taught me about Jesus. I had a wonderful, godly grandfather. Grandparents don't ever minimize the amount of influence you have on your grandchildren. And I really thought that I would grow up to be a missionary, and I wanted to go to Africa and feed people. But as a teenager, we had a lot of conflict in our home, so I fell far away from the Lord as a teenager.
Well, it didn't become the end of the story, thankfully. What turned you around? And I'm sure some would like to know, because their teens aren't following in the footsteps the parents would like to see.
I won't say how far away from the Lord I fell, but I was married at 17, and just before, just around our first anniversary, we were having a discussion about whether or not there even was a God. We had gotten that far away from Him, and we decided kind of tentatively that there probably was, there must be. And I'm so glad that we came to that decision that night, because very shortly after that, my husband Reed, and just around our first year anniversary, just a couple months after, was in a near fatal car accident. Actually, it was fatal if you count that he was resuscitated 3 times by CPR. So really, he did die. And the Lord gave him back to us. And he was paralyzed, he was epileptic, he had to learn how to walk and talk and everything. And all of a sudden, that God that we had just tentatively thought might exist became the only thing we had to hang on to. And we found that He was everything that we needed. He provided for us. He brought us through that horrible experience. And I really didn't know very much about Him then. I was just learning about Him. So He cared for us and brought us through. And at the year point when we took Reed back to see his neurosurgeon, the neurosurgeon he called his name a couple of times out the door, and didn't realize that was actually Reed sitting there. He had recovered so much in that year. He looked perfectly normal.
Didn't recognize him.
Didn't recognize him, yeah. And they had all told us at that time, oh, these marriages never last. When there's a brain injury, probably this won't work for you. And I was determined that it would work.
Isn't it interesting that, ironic, that this became a very profound answer to your question, is God real?
Yeah, it was very real. Yeah,
wow.
It was.
You even used the word miracle in this chapter.
It was absolutely a miracle that he would recover from what he was. There was still some disability. His left side was weak, so he carried his arm carefully, and a little uneven gait, but he taught himself how to play the guitar again. He would put his fingers on the key and the strings and strum, and then he'd move them again and strum. And now, you know, he can play his guitar, he can play golf. He's very physically healed. There were some other things that weren't healed, and that was always a question to me, why God would heal him so much but leave out this one chunk. He had epilepsy, and it was very bad. Got worse and worse and worse. Toxic on his medication, never really under control, often, you know, 30 or 40 petit mal seizures in a day. So we ended up, that's another part of the story.
Well,
what happened with Huntley Street happened in the middle.
Okay, well, let's just flesh that out a little bit, because you had your first child, Deborah.
We did. We had a beautiful baby girl.
So the situation you're describing with this increasing challenge with the brain injury, with the epilepsy and the medications, toxic behavior emerging in Reed. So you've got a toddler, you have Reed, and one income.
We were on a disability pension. I had to be at home looking after him. I couldn't go to work. I did some volunteering, but that was later.
And you're the sweetest personality I could imagine sitting next to me, but you say you became
I was
angry, fearful, and depressed.
I was very depressed, and I was very argumentative. I was just angry at the whole situation. I knew God, but I just couldn't make it work, and I didn't know why I couldn't make it work, and I was trying my hardest, and I couldn't do it.
So this is the Bonnie who happened to have the TV on. You didn't plan to watch Huntley Street
not
that
on
New Year's
Eve.
No.
That's
not your idea of a good time. Okay.
Sorry, David.
It's okay. He hears this kind of thing often.
Does he? Yeah.
So what did you see when you watched the program?
It was just on. It was more that nobody turned it off than that we had turned it on. And at midnight, they prayed. And I thought, my first reaction was, oh, that was pretty boring. You know, what did I watch this on New Year's Eve for? But then gradually everybody went to bed, and I was alone in the dark by myself. And I remember the amazing peace that I saw on their faces and the joy that I saw on their faces. And I just longed for that. And I cried out to God, and I said, if you can fix my life, I will do anything. And I really meant it, and he knew. In essence, I was giving myself totally over to him, which is what we have to do. We can't make it on our own. We have to give ourselves totally into his care. And when I gave him all of me, then he gave me all of him. And from that day, from that moment, he started a work in my life that changed me internally. It changed me into the woman that I always wanted to be, but I didn't know how to get there. I was trying so hard, but he did it. Nothing changed about my outer circumstances, obviously. I still had a brain-injured husband and a terrible income, and I needed to learn a lot about him. But he started changing me from the inside, just transforming me.
When the Prince of Peace truly takes up residence, and you stop striving and allow him to live in and through you, it's transformational.
Yeah, not I, but Christ in me.
I wish the story would just smooth out here, but
I wish it would
oh
too.
Man, you had. Well, let's start with the positives, because some wonderful ministry things. God gave you a gift of music.
Yeah, I really wanted to serve him in any way I possibly could. So I first, obviously you're just sharing with the people around you, your family and your friends, what's happened to you. And some of them had seen it happen to me, so they were asking me about it. But each of my family came to the Lord like dominoes after that, and were baptized and are serving the Lord. And then
you started writing music.
I started writing music, and Reed played
was
his
part
guitar,
of this, playing guitar and
part
singing?
of our testimony that God had brought him through this amazing thing, and we spoke and we sang, and we eventually made a recording.
You've actually made 2 CDs, haven't you?
Yes, I have, yeah, with Alpha Studios.
You started a crisis pregnancy center in Bracebridge. You directed and co-directed Birthright Bracebridge.
That was
12 years.
a volunteer position, director first and then co-director with another lady, and And I would take the babies with me
How
afterwards.
about Toronto City Mission?
Yeah, and when I was in seminary, someone was taking a pizza down the hall and they said, free pizza, and I followed it, and it was the beginning of a ministry with Toronto City Mission with at-risk youth from the Willow Tree Housing Development.
I just think it's
we had a
interesting
ball.
that little girl dream of being a missionary would be fulfilled in God's way and
not
God's
in Africa,
time.
but
Not
in
Africa.
Toronto. God sent me to Toronto.
No, you're not done yet. Who knows what chapters are still to
My
unfold.
retirement project.
You did have 2 more children. Tom is your
Yes.
middle child.
Yes.
Tom is your middle child. It's his day today, August 12th. And then
Oh, dear.
Sarah.
And Sarah came again. There was 12 years between Debbie and Tom, and I thought that I would not have any more children. And then I was in the crisis pregnancy center less than 3 or 6 months when Tom came along. So we just thought we were lucky, and then Sarah came along. So I'm very grateful.